Hello everyone and welcome to the Good Old Gamer. So, online distribution of video games and DRM are hand in hand, have been for a while now, but we're starting to see the cracks in the armor and how detrimental both of these are to the gaming community. We've had a few examples show up here recently, which I'll cover here in a minute, and personally, I've actually experienced some really bad issues with this online-only DRM stuff. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about here today, are what sort of solutions are out there to bypass this. And honestly, I think we need to reform the gaming community to remove DRM, especially when a game goes EOL. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about here today in this video. But first, if you like videos like this, please smash that like button, please subscribe, please share with friends. Sharing this one around would be great. I'd really like the industry to know that, hey, after a certain period of time, DRM needs to be stripped out of every single video game out there. Because, as we're going to be talking about, not being able to play stuff that you paid for is a real problem. So if you like that type of content, if you want to see change in the community, share the videos, stick with me here. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos on stuff like this here in the future. So, all right, let's get into it. So, starting things off a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago now, I saw this article here talking about Might and Magic 10. So, it's not a very popular game. I don't really know anybody who's played it. I played Might and Magic 4. That was a lot of fun way back when. But anyways, so this is a game where Ubisoft decided, hey, we're going to stop supporting the game. It's old. We're not getting any sales on it. Basically, to them, it's just not worth maintaining. So they ended up stripping out all their servers, including the DRM activation server. So this meant if you purchased the game and reinstalled the game, it couldn't activate and you could not play a game that you paid for. And if you guys are familiar with Might and Magic, there's obviously campaign modes and things of that nature. Now, if they were just dropping multiplayer, that happens. That happens to most games. And honestly, multiplayer games, you need internet access. There's just no way around that. This video is primarily targeted towards single-player campaigns, and the single-player portion of Might and Magic 10 to a paying customer was just cut off. You had no access to it. Hilariously enough, Ubisoft was still selling the game on Steam after the activation servers were disabled. So you could actually pay for the game that you could not play. Now, obviously, that's not too big of an issue. Everybody could get a refund on that. But it just shows the cognitive dissonance that these companies have towards their paying customers or to their old software. They clearly have no respect for their own catalog. If they're just like, nah, cut those servers off and we'll figure it out later, that means they have no interest in making sure that you're happy with the product that you bought from them after they took your money. And this has always been the big argument about online required and DRM is what happens when a company does this. They forget about a game. Maybe it wasn't that popular, but you or I really like it and we want to play it a couple years down the road. Well, like I said, now we have a perfect example of, well, you're shit out of luck. Now, the more prominent DRM issue that came out just a few weeks after that was with Resident Evil Village. As you guys know, your performance basically tanks because they threw de novo into the whole thing. And it gave paying PC gamers a worse experience on Resident Evil Village than any other platform. So if you went out and pirated the game, you had a better experience. If you played it on a console, you had a better experience. This is just not a good look. Now, obviously, this has been fixed and resolved, and this was just a weird, quirky issue, but it plays to the issue of the paying customer being the worst treated out of the bunch. And it really got me thinking, I'm like, this is just promoting piracy at this point, because not only do you not need the internet to run these things, you don't have all of this DRM and all these bugs and stuff built into these games. You're literally pitching that the pirated version of the game is the superior version. And to me, I think that's sending the wrong message. I think the companies don't want that to be the message, but that is the message being sent out to the community. Personally, I don't believe in pirating games and all that. I pay for my stuff. Now, I know a lot of people will make up whatever excuses they want. If you like a game, pay for it. However, I cannot recommend anymore people pay for stuff with DRM. So before we get into the solutions, I do want to go over my own personal issues that happened right around the same time frame that all of these stories were coming out. So I was testing my Aya Neo a while ago, and I was testing Max Payne 3. It's an older game. It's a more demanding 7th gen game, and I was like, well, if it can run this, it can run most 7th gen games. Now, Max Payne 3 came out in 2012, so this is a 9-year-old game, and here recently, just recently, within the past couple of months, like right around when I started doing these videos, you always needed to log into the Rockstar Social Club. So Steam would just like use your Steam stuff and auto log you in. So it really wasn't that big of a deal. But now, just here recently, to run a game that I bought way back when, I now have to have a Rockstar launcher on my system. So this is just more DRM thrown onto a game that is 9 years old and honestly hasn't received updates in forever. Regardless, now when I was testing on the Aya Neo, the launcher needed to run an update, which was hilarious because I didn't really have strong Wi-Fi down here, and with the Aya Neo, you got to plug it into a dock and stuff. So it took about 20 minutes for this thing to update the Rockstar launcher. It's not updating my game. This isn't benefiting me in any way, shape, or form, but I could not run my benchmark until this update finished. And it was just really frustrating because I'm like, I'm not getting anything better for my game here. I'm just updating unnecessary software at this point, which was never intended to be a part of this game. So basically it's DRM being forced into games that didn't have it beforehand or not at the same level. To me, it was just really frustrating because I'm like, why? Why do I need this thing that I've never needed before? Why do I want this thing? Me personally, I use 2 launchers. I use Steam, GOG, that's it. Any other platform, I don't buy your games and I don't play them. It's just that simple. I don't want that bloat and shit on my systems. The only exception to that is if I'm running benchmarks for the channel, but my personal systems, I don't want that stuff on there. So to me, it's just not even worth playing the game. So honestly, I'm going to be just frank with you guys. I own the game both physically. I have a physical copy up here, and I own it on Steam. So I went out and I got a cracked version of the game. So this way I don't need any of their stuff, which just ties into what I was saying before. It's more advantageous for me as a paying customer to go get the illegal version because I don't need to deal with your BS anymore. And that game just works. It's great. You just pop it on there. It's portable. I don't have to install it. I just drop the file, I hit the executable, and it goes. Much, much easier experience than dealing with all the BS of the official versions that I have. Now, on top of all of that, here recently, I don't know what's going on, but my internet service has been a little wonky. I do know that there's a lot of chatter out there, things like the World Economic Forum, the UN, even the US government. They're talking about a lot of cyber issues coming up, power and cyber, within the next few years. I don't know if it's part of that, whatever, but the internet would cut out for about 4 or 5 hour blocks. Usually it's late at night, so I just assumed it was maintenance, but one day it was during the day, like from 8 till like 2 p.m., 8 a.m., 2 p.m., so very inconvenient time. You know what this means if you try to play a lot of your games that either require DRM or internet, well, they're just inaccessible. So when your internet goes down, for whatever reason, drunk driver hits a pole and knocks down some wires, or like I said, maybe there's big cyber issues going on in the world, whatever it happens to be, your entire library is basically worthless without that internet. Now, I know Steam will allow you to play games that you've already loaded up, in offline mode for up to 14 days. But what happens if your internet's out for more than 14 days? There's a big issue, internet's down for, let's say, 2 to 3 months. This is something that the governments of the world are expecting to happen, by the way. So just getting you guys prepared, your internet may be gone for many months at a time. Think of it, they've referenced it as digital COVID. So this may come to pass, it may not, but you need to be prepared for it. Your game's library is basically worthless at that point, the vast majority of it. In my opinion, at this point in time, games that require internet and DRM, you're basically just renting. And in all honesty, you're probably just better getting Game Pass because at least that one's up front and letting you know that you're renting this stuff. The companies out there aren't just going to unlock their games in the future because there's no requirement for them to do so. So here are the solutions that I personally suggest and that we as the community tell these companies that they should probably adopt. Number 1, you can just buy games on GOG. GOG is great. I've started affiliating with them, so I'm going to be upfront and honest with that. I do have an affiliate link down below, but I've been recommending GOG games forever because they are DRM free. You can download installers, store them on an external hard drive or something, so you can basically install them whenever, wherever you want, no internet necessary. If you install the games, they're all pretty much portable anyway. So if you have them installed on, let's say, an external or whatever, you can move them straight over to another computer without doing an installation process. So it's super awesome. And in my opinion, the only place on PC that makes sense to buy games, because you actually own them and you can do whatever you want with the thing that you purchased. You can run it on your machine whenever you want, regardless of the situation. So to me, any game that's not on GOG is basically just a liability. I personally feel like I'm just renting the license and they can basically revoke it at any time. So that's not awesome. I'd rather have a thing that's like, nope, I have it and I own it forever. It's as close to having physical copy as you can have nowadays. Which brings me to the next point. Physical copies. This is actually the best part about console gaming, is the fact that they still have physical copies. I know Sony and Microsoft are trying to push everybody to digital only, but no matter what happens, as long as I have this, I can go ahead and run the game. Now, the smart move is you install everything, download all the updates, and save everything onto an external hard drive. Sony and Microsoft both allow you to do that. And then basically you just use this to unlock the game. So you can have all your updates and DLCs and everything and keep all of that with the physical disc. Now, if you have to install off the disc, there might be bugs and some issues there. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, you can't install the full game off the disc. Make sure you back it up. Just like with GOG, you need to have your own physical backups, either on like an external hard drive or a secure server, whatever it is that you have at your house. But you need to have your games backed up both on console and on PC. That's just my recommendation. But as long as you have that and you have the disc, you don't need permission from Sony, Microsoft, you don't need the internet, you don't need any of these people. You're only reliant on yourself, because guess what? $billion companies don't really care about you or your little problems. All right, and then finally, this is the big one. This is the reason why I wanted to do this video and get the community involved, is I think game developers, publishers, after a certain time frame, this is something that can be haggled out. There should be a date, like 5 to 7 years after launch. All games need to be stripped of all DRM. Personally, I think that that's just the best way moving forward. Of course, they could just put their games on GOG without DRM and poof, there you go, problem solved. But personally, I think a legal precedent might be necessary to make sure that these companies have to do it. Like, it needs to be a law that after a certain period of time, the company's neglect can't bar you and I from using products that we paid for. So, like I said, 5 to 7 years, something like Max Payne 3 should not have DRM, should not require any launchers. It should just work. It's like I said, it's a 9-year-old game. It's not receiving any more updates. You know, just let it be at this point in time. Sure, you can still get sales out of it. And yes, okay, you might be able to make the argument that, oh, we're going to lose some sales because we don't have all these DRM. We know that that's BS because of things like Cyberpunk 2077 that came out and had tons of sales, had tons of problems, and had tons of returns. But regardless, it was DRM free from day one and still had tons and tons of sales. We know that that's a BS argument. So I think giving these guys that safety blanket of a few years and then being forced to require that all DRM be stripped out of their games, to me, that's the most customer-centric move that we can do. I think that that's fair for everyone. But alrighty, guys, that's the big thing that I wanted to get through. I wanted to tell you guys my experiences. I wanted to prepare you for a world with temporary internet disruptions. Might be a few hours, might be a few months. You need to kind of be prepared for both. And we're going to be talking more about how to keep your gaming going during such annoying times here down the road, using solar power, things of that nature. Basically, gaming off the grid, getting you less reliant on billion-dollar corporations and getting you reliant more upon yourself to do all the things that you want. Because let's be honest, if you can't fix the problem, then you're screwed. So putting yourself in a position where you and only you are necessary to resolve an issue, I think that that's really smart. So we're going to be talking more about that down the road. So I really want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think we should start pushing legislators to go ahead and make sure that companies can't just neglect their products and screw you out of stuff? I personally think that we should. I think that this would be a great movement out there. And like I said, I don't think it's going to hurt companies to do this either. Once again, if you like the video, please smash that like button. Please subscribe. Please share this one around. I'm really interested to hear the community's thoughts on this stuff. Personally, it's really starting to tick me off. And I'm at the point where if it's not on GOG, I'm not giving you my money anymore. That's kind of where we're at. I'll wait until it gets over there because I'm just tired of these quirks and these issues and being screwed out of stuff that I personally paid for. But that's enough rambling for me here today, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.